You're welcome back to Business Morning on the Breakfast Show. Now let's move to our first conversation for today. Now, CBN directs banks to nominate successors 6 months before the CEO's exit. The Central Bank of Nigeria has issued a new directive mandating deposit money banks and other financial institutions to propose replacements for their chief executives at least 6 months before the end of their tenure. The Apex Bank said the policy is designed to strengthen succession planning in the banking industry, ensure stability in leadership transitions, and reduce disruptions that often follow sudden executive exits. According to the circular, banks are expected to submit names of potential successors well in advance, giving regulators ample time to access competence, fit, and compliance with corporate governance requirements. Industry analysts say the measure could prevent last-minute power struggles and even help prepare competent leaders for smooth takeovers. However, some stakeholders note that strict adherence will be key to avoiding boardrooms delays or even political interference in succession processes. And now, joining us throw more light on this development is Olaotan Fawehinmi. He's a seasoned marketing communications professional with vast expert knowledge in the banking sector. Good morning, Olaotan.
Morning, Destiny. How are you?
Fine, thank you. I hope it was not so much from the rain this morning.
Well, somehow we're used to it.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for joining us on the short notice. And now, very quickly, how will the CBN 6-month successor nomination rule impact long-term succession planning in Nigerian banks?
Well, I think most importantly, let's look at the positive side. Because you're talking about the impact, so it could either be positive or negative. But I like to be positive first.
Very important.
So this kind of policy, the 6 months successor nomination, and of course 3 months public announcement, would have would force succession planning. Okay, back in the days, most of the time you don't know the processes that happen in the boardrooms. But now it's going to be more open. We're going to have situations where we see the process that led to the announcement or putting somebody, a particular person, on the CEO seat. Okay, so that's regulatory sign-off, and the 3 months public announcement will ensure that the boardrooms now, or the management of the banks now, are more deliberate about creating an active pipeline of talents. So we're not just looking at bringing people from the outside. We are going to be more deliberate about training and developing your inner assets, your employees, and making them ready for the task that is ahead. And then again, I think it's going to help ensure a smoother transition, because what we've seen in the past is situations where it happens. Most times it happens hurriedly, so we have to now look for who are we going to bring, and everybody's just running up and down. So having this kind of policy in place would ensure that banks are now more deliberate about building their internal talent, whether you want to send them abroad for training, whether you want to give them higher roles early. It then helps you to better plan. Do you understand? So when you talk about talent reviews, formal programs, building contingency plans, now we're now going to see the management of banks institutionalizing the development of their employees. You understand? So looking at it from that point of view, I think this is a good thing. I think it's a good way to go.
All right then. So now, do you think this directive may help reduce leadership vacuum risk, or might it encourage premature power tussles within bank boards?
I think it's a bit of both, really. I think the vacuum scheme risk rather is going to be reduced. I said earlier that it's going to help planning. So if you're announcing ahead of time, 6 months ahead of time, or you're informing the Apex Bank 6 months ahead of time, and you're making a public announcement 3 months ahead of time, you are not going to be caught unawares. So the vacuum risk would reduce, right? The successors will be visible early. You're not going to be gambling, and you're not going to have to source for external hands when you've actually taken time to raise people you have internally. Okay, but on the flip side is that it will now, how we can be in this part of the world. It will now increase some sort of lobbying and internal fights, and then you now see people trying to play to the gallery to ensure that, oh, I know that I'm in the pipeline to be nominated when this particular CEO is out. So it's a bit of both. To be honest with you,
okay.
What needs to happen is when we understand the place of governance discipline, when we have compliance. I mean, we understand that there's a certain criteria that you must meet in terms of your history in the bank. Okay, I worked several years, almost 6 years, doing public relations and communications for one of the top banks in Nigeria. It was even a holdco, was a holding organization. So you have the bank, the insurance, pension, and all of that. Now, what we saw over the years was that most times the chief executive for the holdings, when they are going out, most times it is the chief executive of the bank that takes over.
Okay.
Because they have like the experience, they understand governance, they understand compliance at that high level. And before you can be chief executive of bank, you probably have been an ED at the bank before. And most of the time when we're announcing new appointments for this particular financial institution, we read their history and we see that they move from one step to another within the bank. So you understand the culture, you understand the way they do things, their discipline, governance, everything. So it's easier for you to take up higher roles because you've been through the process. Do you understand? Yeah. So in saying that, when the banks handle this formally, when there's transparency, when the process is competence-based and not because, I like this person, I don't like this person. If we can fill those gaps, I think, to be honest with you, it's going to come out well.
Okay, then. So now, what do you think are the challenges that banks face when trying to groom internal candidates to meet CBN's competence and governance requirements?
Skills. I think the first, sometimes, not all the time, right? We've seen an example in one of the tier 1 banks where a new MD was appointed. I think it was last year. I think. Of course, over time, she has displayed competencies in different roles. And when it was time to step up to the role of MD, it was easy, it was seamless. Sometimes we notice skill gaps. And so I know I talked about compliance, because compliance at that level is very serious with regulatory bodies. You need to understand what obtains internationally. It's a whole lot.
Okay.
You talk about governance, you talk about building track records. You cannot be an MD or CEO of a bank and then you have some shady deals that you've done, whether as a younger staff or as an ED or as an account manager. It's not possible.
Well then,
okay?
So Okay,
So
go ahead.
sorry,
Go ahead. Go
sorry.
ahead.
Let me hear your thoughts.
No. I wasn't even thinking in that line, but I agree with you totally. But then again, I
Yeah.
just want to quickly add that,
Yes.
how does this policy align with global best practices,
Mm.
in financial sector leadership transitions?
It does align, to be honest with you. If you look at the UK, the US, Europe, basically, if you look at developed countries, it's the same framework.
Okay.
You don't sleep, wake up, and then just call somebody and tell them to come and lead the financial institution. The role is very sensitive. The position is sensitive. The sector is sensitive. You are dealing with people's monies. You are dealing with treasures. So you don't just. I think it mirrors it. To be honest with you, regulations in developed countries, the regulations are the same. If you look at it, so if you look at this CBN's approach, it aligns very well. It sits comfortably with international trend. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it
Yeah,
does.
true.
It does. So we're taking learnings. My only concern is to ensure that the process is thorough and it's transparent, so
Okay.
that it builds trust, and then we're not in a position where we're saying, oh yes, we are following trends, international trends, but at the same time we're not following due process. We're just still being funny with the appointments. If we can avoid that, it's a good way to go, to be honest.
Yeah, but then I see in the case of when the late Access Bank CEO
Access Bank,
passed,
yeah,
and yes,
yeah.
a woman was brought forth. But I also see that recently she has been replaced. Now, could it be that something happened along the line?
So from experience, with what I said to you about handling this kind of situation, appointments for one of Nigerian banks, I realized that, okay, let me even tell you this. There was a point where the CEO at some point 2 years ago was going to retire, and every one of us had thought that there was going to be, we assumed who he was going to be based on the trajectory, the history, what we knew that the bank was used to, and we assumed, we speculated that it was going to be this person, and we were even preparing the communications already, only for the bank to announce, and we realized that it was a different person. It was actually the CFO that was
Oh,
announced. And what we realized was that a lot of things happen back end. A lot of interviews happen. It's like apart from scaling through the organization, the interviews and rigorous assessments within the organization, you also have to do it with regulatory bodies as well.
yeah.
CBN being the top. It's
Okay.
when you pass CBN's assessment test that you get in fact they call it regulatory approval. So until that happens, you can't be announced. So it could be that at some point we were speculating that it was going to be the woman, and then eventually, maybe during some of the assessments, we realized that something was wrong somewhere, and it couldn't be her. It had to be someone else. And then again, don't also forget that it was someone who was CEO of that bank who stepped down before the late Albert Igwe came on board. So it's also a lot of it could be anything really. We're not sure what it is, or it's left to the board. I
Okay.
mean, and it could also be that during the assessments something didn't go right and they had to change.
Oh, then.
That's
So now, do you
yeah.
see this directive strengthening depositor confidence and market stability, or adding unnecessary regulatory pressure on banks?
Again, it could be both ways.
Mhm.
but but what it would do, first off, yeah, I think it will strengthen confidence, honestly. But then that is if we handle it well, if it's implemented well, it will strengthen confidence. I said that earlier.
Yeah.
Here you can predict leadership. You can tell. I've said, if we've looked at what's the trajectory, who takes over after what. And again, some organizations, some banks are deliberate about these things. They
Okay.
know who takes over a particular position because they are grooming. That's the word. They are grooming the person for the CEO seat. Okay, so when you are able to predict the leadership and you see that over time a lot has been done to groom the person, it's easy, it's better. Okay, but then again, you think of the compliance bar, it will raise it, whether you like it or not, because even the stakeholders, the investors, the shareholders, everybody wants to be sure that you are handing over the governance of that bank to somebody who is capable. So again, it comes down to capability. It boils down to capability. There's going to be pressure on the banks. There's going to be pressure on the board that it cannot be business as usual. You can predict who is supposed to take over the position. However, if due diligence is not done, then there will be an issue. Then you see rumors, then you have risks. Do you understand? So I say that let's balance things up, right? Let's make sure that the process is transparent. Whatever it is, why are we selecting this person? Let's make sure that the selection mechanism is open, is clear. Everybody can see that this was why we chose this person and not just some lobbying and favoritism and all over this and all of these things happening here and there. If you can remove all of that, I can assure you it's
Okay,
going to be a
then.
good response.
I see also that that the CBN is on and about, nominating successors and ensuring that they are chosen on merit rather than boardroom politics. But I also see a lot of banks, when you want to see who their CEOs are, you find a lot of women. Could it be that, women are actually succeeding banks these days? Because from all indications, these banks are actually doing well. Or what do you think?
There is a policy for gender balance.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a policy for gender balance. In fact, it's as bad as it is that you do it a 50-50 or you do a 60-40. And this particular financial institution that I worked with, they are very particular about those things. They take it very seriously. At the top level, if you have 6 men, you must have minimum of 4 women. Because there must be gender balance. And that's what we've been preaching. And we have to show the international world that we mean what we're saying. So if right now we're putting women, it's because over time they've worked in the organization, they have all it takes. You check the documentation, everything is fine. You scrutinize their work over time, their capabilities, their everything. You look at it. If they merit it, why not? So good. Yes. We've noticed that women are being brought forward, and that's because now everybody is particular about striking the gender balance and no more, we have to sideline the women because no, it has to. It's not a men's game. Even fintech that back in the days, technology that back in the days used to be a man thing, that's not anymore now. You have a lot of women in tech and they're doing very well. So why not in banking? Why not in sports? Why not everywhere else?
Well, so, which is very good. Okay, then beyond naming a replacement, what mechanisms are in place to actually evaluate the readiness and capability of these successors?
Their work, their trajectory, their work history, their performance history. Okay. I did say that if you want to succeed as a CEO, you don't start from being a CEO. Maybe you even start, maybe you enter the bank as an executive. Maybe you even started as a trainee. It's possible. Then one thing leads to the other. You start growing, you start advancing, then you start taking leadership roles. I did say that when we announced leaders in that bank at that time, we always also show their profile, and you can see that from handling a particular arm of the bank to maybe now handling one of the legs, one of the companies, either the bank or the pension or the insurance, or you must have handled one of the business units before you are even considered to become the CEO of the holdings. And at some point you must even have been like a non-executive director and all of that. So it boils down to trajectory. It boils down to what you've done over the years, how much of leadership capabilities you have, how much of the culture of the organization that you're aware of, what you have done. And regulators even check this, and that's the truth. They check it. That's why they require that you must show us this person ahead of time, so that we can check this person's history. How well has this person done over the years? Do you understand?
Yeah.
So yeah, it shows the results will speak for itself. That's why I said if it's transparent and open, there's no need to lobby or stress. You just show it. This is the best person for this job based on this and this and this that this person has achieved over the years within our organization.
Okay, then, so now what penalties or sanctions could banks face for non-compliance with these new directive?
Which is typical when you have banks not complying with the Apex Bank's directives. Most times you see fines. They could even, they have the ability to not approve the person and say, no, we're not sure of the process that brought this person up. So go and try it again. Sometimes they can even appoint. They have the power to appoint if they see that you're not doing it well. You're not open. You're not transparent, and something is wrong somewhere. The Apex Bank can actually take over the entire process and appoint someone, either as acting for you to get your acts right, or appoint somebody to do it. They can take it over, right? But before then, I'm sure that you can have penalties such as fines, some restrictions. They can appoint people, what is what now? Appoint like a committee,
okay,
or appoint people from the board to oversee that and take it away from the hands of those who are not doing it well. So, because again, non-compliance, when we don't comply to such directives, what we are playing with is trust.
okay.
Do you understand? Trust from the Apex banks, from the from the shareholders, from even the customers, and from the public generally. So penalties are there, it will always be applicable when there's non-compliance.
So then could this policy indirectly limit banks' ability to scout like maybe international talent or even external candidates? Sometimes they might, have this this person in mind, and then maybe at the end of the day, because of the CBN's policy, finding out that the people they have in mind are not technocrats in this regard. So do you think it will affect like international talents or even external candidates?
So getting external candidates, it shouldn't. I don't think it should. Okay. But when we are pressed for time, which is very common with us, when our processes are rigid and maybe when we are pressed for time, it could, but it shouldn't. It need not, honestly. 6 months is enough time, to go through regulatory approvals, submit all the necessary documents.
Okay.
If you want to search, I think you have ample time to search. What we're just saying is, let's ensure that we have that name 6 months ahead, so that we can do our own due diligence. Because we realize that the time before now, the timing used to be very short, and then a lot happens in a rush. You understand? So the planning cost, the getting travel documents, relocation, it's a lot. It's a lot. So if we are going to go that way, what it then means is that we plan ahead. So maybe like a year before then, you're already looking out. You're already speaking to the person. You're already getting the documents and submitting it and informing the Apex Bank that, this is the route we are going. So if we do all of that before 6 months before the time that you announce, you do due diligence, I think it should be fine. So it doesn't mean that we will now shut down, even though it will increase our dependence on local talent, to be honest. But then it doesn't shut the. I personally don't think it will shut the door to international hires or external hires.
So then, lastly, how will the CBN balance regulatory oversight with board autonomy in actually making leadership decisions?
Let me be very honest. It might be difficult to remove board autonomy.
Oh,
anyway, yes. Let's face it. Let's face it. It might be difficult to remove board autonomy. But then, if the process, I'll still say that everything lies on process. The outcome in branding, in when you're dealing with brands, you say the product is only as good as the process.
Okay.
This entire thing, the outcome is only as good as the process. If you check for what are we looking for? What are we looking for? We're looking for suitability and continuity.
Sure.
When this kind of thing happens, you can be sure that policies or whatever it is you are doing, somebody else comes, the succession is smoother, and to continue in the same line is easier because you were even there in the first place when the predecessor was there. So you taking up most of those things, you just continue because you've been part of it anyways. Good oversight. When we stay true to our word, we check, we ask questions, we're transparent, clear guidance, making sure that what we have said, we don't go back on it. That's it. So the Apex Bank has to strike a balance as much as the financial institutions themselves, striking a balance in terms of nominating the person in the first place. The Apex Bank as well has to do diligence, due diligence in scrutinizing and assessing the person. So when that happens, even when there is board autonomy, it will be open, and then we can do the right thing. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
I agree.
So we may not totally eradicate it, but we can fish it out and correct it. So let's ensure compliance to this policy.
Okay.
We set the clear timelines. Let's ensure that the people who are involved comply, and in cases where there's no compliance, there's sanction. And when there's compliance, there's due diligence in assessing, and engaging with the person and the board. Let's know why you're choosing this person. So it's balance across board, Destiny. That's the truth. Oh, wow. Balance on the side of the CBN, balance on the side of the board, balance on the side of the shareholders to understand and be patient and trust that the process is for the good of all at the end of the day.
Oh, wow. I want to thank you so much, Olaotan Fawehinmi, marketing communication expert, for actually throwing more light on this on CBN's policy right now. You've given us the headlights on how and why these policies should hold. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much, and have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
It's still Business Morning, and let's just move on to the second conversation for today, although it's going to be a little bit of a rhetoric. Nigeria sees a strong growth in remittances, boosting economy amid global uncertainty. As Nigeria is witnessing a significant surge in diaspora remittances, providing a vital lifeline for its economy amid global economic headwinds. According to recent data from the Central Bank of Nigeria, remittance inflows have climbed steadily, reinforcing the country's position as one of Africa's top recipients of funds from citizens living abroad. Analysts say this growth underscores the resilience of the Nigerian diaspora, whose financial contributions actually continue to support millions of households. Experts highlight that remittances not only serve as a cushion for families against inflation and unemployment, but also inject foreign exchange liquidity into the economy at a time when Nigeria faces pressure on its reserves. Economists also point out that the rising inflows create opportunities for investment in sectors such as real estate, education, healthcare, and small-scale businesses, which is further strengthening the nation's economic base. And you know, with the federal government pushing for digital remittance channels and even reduced transaction costs, industry observers believe Nigeria could unlock even greater inflows in the coming years, which will bring about transforming remittances from household survival tools into engines for national development. Now, because we're pressed for time, we'll not be able to, admit questions in this remittance regard. But we also believe that some factors are driving the recent surge in remittances to Nigeria despite global economic uncertainties. But we'll bring you more updates on this in our subsequent editions of Business Morning, so that fintech experts will come on board and, actually, give us more analysis in this regard. Now, this is how much we will take on a Business Morning this morning. I am Destiny Momoh. Up next is the big story. Please don't go away. It's still the breakfast show on Business Day Television. Stay